certainly seeing some signs of desperation out of Ukraine on the battlefield. Surprisingly, they attacked the front lines in the Bakhmut and Soledar region fairly heavily with aircraft. We haven't really seen Ukraine be quite this aggressive with their aircraft, as it is really risky given the Russian air defense. Haven't got any reports on how effective these attacks have been. They've just been quite a bit more heavy than we've seen. But in the last 2 days, it's the heaviest aircraft losses that I can recall being reported by the Russians. So in the Donbass region, Ukraine lost 4 Su-25s, 2 MiG-29s, and an Mi-8 copter. In Kharkiv, they lost 1 Su-27 and 1 Su-24. Over the territory of Kharkiv region, the activity of aviation has also been significantly increased. In the past 24 hours, more than 22 sorties of Su-25 aircraft, or MiG-29 fighters, Mi-8 helicopters have been recorded. So it's starting to look like Ukraine has launched its offensive towards Crimea. Heavy equipment concentrations are in the Terna region. Artillery is stationed in Ternsky. It seems like this is not a very good move for Ukraine, though. We're hearing that Washington has asked them not to launch offensives until they can be rearmed in March. This reminds me of this story that was in circulation quite a while back, shortly after the Ukrainians had taken Lyman. A trainload of Polish mercenaries showed up in the region. They were sent down the railroad tracks. When they got there, they were sent in to attack Crimea. They got instantly bombarded with artillery and rockets and retreated. They regrouped in Lyman and were immediately sent back into the battle in that region with the same conditions. Well, apparently the conversation was picked up by Russian intelligence as the Poles were discussing their options for getting themselves out of this. They couldn't believe they were immediately sent back in when half of them or so were destroyed quickly after arriving to the front. Well, if you look at this latest mapping of Russian positions by the Deep State map, it seems to explain this whole situation well, and it seems like the same result will be inevitable. These big assaults, which seem to happen every couple of weeks or so, usually result in around 250 Ukrainian losses per day, and this usually goes on for 2, 3, 4 days or so, and then they just stop the offensive. So it looks like this Black Sea battle is about to heat up again. There has been reported fighting over the islands between North and South Kherson. The Russians attacked Ochikovo port, and there was a big explosion that was caught on video. It's been reported that it was an ammo depot. According to some reports, a Ukrainian air defense radar was also destroyed. On another front, we have heard that the Ukrainians have been working with the U.S. to arm their ships with rocket launchers, and that they are positioned somewhere at the Dnieper River. Also, we have heard that Russia and Iran have established this new trade route to avoid sanctions through the Azov Sea. It's thought that this would open the door for other countries that might also want to escape sanctions to follow that route. This would probably really agitate the leaders in Washington. This may be something that they are trying to figure out how to defeat, so the whole situation could really escalate and get out of hand. Well, as usual, the media is trying to get out in front of the fall of Soledar. They're basically downplaying the importance of Soledar and, trying to make it into an insult of the Russians by saying that they couldn't take Bakhmut, so they're going to just settle for an easier target, which is Soledar. In Soledar, we hear that additionally the 61st Mechanized Brigade has retreated during the night. Ukraine has used tanks to launch attacks to hold off the Russians from entering from the south of Soledar. Now we're hearing that there is some fighting in central Soledar. Somehow the Russians managed to capture this northern corner high-rise apartment building. This is thought to give them a great advantage since Ukraine doesn't have artillery in the area. Also, Russia currently has Soledar surrounded on 3 sides. We heard that Soledar was shelled over 100 times last night. Zelensky has ordered freshly trained troops stationed near the northern front to reinforce down in this area. Seems like they will be easy targets on arrival with this current configuration. Also note that the northern and southern front are continuing to be thinned out as they feed into this great meat grinder area. The main battles have shifted in Soledar to the high-rise area in the center of the city, where the Ukrainians are trying to hold their ground. Forward units of the Russian forces took a position in Krasna Hora and Pereskovika, effectively cutting off the road to Soledar. Meanwhile, defending forces in the settlements are under dense fire control of the Russian units and are suffering from supply difficulties. This footage here is close to the admin building in the center of the town. It's being reported that there's huge buildups on both sides in the Soledar region, with heavy artillery battles starting up. Now let's talk about Bakhmut. So the Wagner head confirmed our thoughts about the underworld below Bakhmut, as he called it an underground city. The biggest news coming from the region is the continued progress to the south and the north. Now they have surrounded Bakhmut by 3 sides as well. They are in Krasnohora and Pereskovivka. They have cut off the road access to Soledar. They have even crossed the river. This could really open things up for them. Here is some before and after satellite footage of the edges of the city. The Ministry of Defense of Belarus announced a new drill with Russian troops, aviation, and air defense at all airfields and firing ranges across Belarus starting January 16th until February 1st. If the Ukrainians keep moving troops from the region, I think there'll be more than a drill. So it appears that Turkey has launched another attack on the Kurds after taking an extended break. So north of Raqqa, they bombarded the Kurds with rockets. This is the SDF forces. Then north of Aleppo, they targeted the SDF army with heavy artillery. So the Polish government has officially approved a $1.4 billion contract to purchase 116 M1A1 Abram tanks from the U.S. This is right after receiving a large shipment of tanks from South Korea just a month ago. So the 2023 rankings have come in, and Poland has already moved up 4 spots on the charts to number 20. So they are rapidly arming themselves. We do believe that they will likely be next to enter into Ukraine.